All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Demystifying Conference Proposals. We're doing this one getting ready for our 79th Annual Conference for Community Arts Education. I am James C. Horton, Director of Learning and Digital Media over here at the National Guild for Community Arts Education, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Heather Eichmeyer, Director of Program and Membership Strategy. Heather, how are you today?
I'm great, James. Hi, everyone.
Thank you all so much for joining us. So before we officially get started, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items with you. Just want to make sure you have your audio all squared away before we get started. If you can't use your speakers on your computer, why don't you try giving a call in with your cell phone or landline. And since we have so many folks on the call today and on the session, all of your lines are muted to ensure best audio quality for everyone. I also want to remind you that during this session, you are encouraged to ask questions throughout. Heather and I will be stopping intermittently throughout the presentation, and to type in a question, to ask a question, you're going to use your chat box located in the right-hand corner of your screen. Just in case you have to pop off early, I know we're all very busy. This webinar is being recorded, and the slides and the full recording will be provided to all those who attended and registered. And an email will go out with further instructions on how to access those. And I also want to remind you to please stick around at the end of this webinar to take our quick survey. Tell us how we did. Tell us how we can improve this webinar for all of you and anyone out there in Guild Land who wants to find out about our programs. So without further ado, I'd like to get into today's agenda. We're going to talk about conference participants. We're going to give you a quick program overview, talk about topics, focus, and themes of the conference, and then we're going to tell you how to propose a session. We'll talk about the qualities of effective session proposals. We'll review the notification process and registration policies in case your session is chosen to get produced at this year's conference. There's a little secret in there for you that presenters do get a discount. So before I hand things off to Heather, I'd like to launch a quick poll and find out how many of you out there have actually attended a Guild conference. A lot of results coming in. Looks like the majority of folks have. Very good, very good. Sound like we have some return people. Going to give it a few more seconds and I'm going to share out these results. All right, looks like everybody has voted. Whoops, a little technical difficulty. If you can excuse me for just 1 second. We're back and we're sharing out the results here. Looks like 65% of you have attended a Guild conference before. Very good, very good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I want to encourage you to type in your questions throughout the presentation in that chat box in your right-hand corner. And without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Heather to tell us, why do we do this conference?
Absolutely. So as James mentioned, this is our 79th Annual Conference for Community Arts Education. This year we are going to be in the Windy City of Chicago, November 2nd through the 5th. We're going to talk a little bit about what happens over those 4 days. But the conference really does provide essential networking and professional development for your staff, for trustees, for faculty and teaching artists in the field. So you can expect, and I can say this very truthfully, that delegates come to the conference, they go to the sessions, you can expect high quality sessions that are going to send you home with real tangible skills and information, with new ideas, with hopefully new connections to multiple stakeholders in the field that you can hopefully develop and build relationships with and collaborate with beyond the conference. And in addition to sort of that skill building and knowledge development, we're really hoping and really aim for the conference to catalyze the growth and development of our field. So there are a number of sessions that, in addition to coming and hearing from experts, practitioners in the field, that there are opportunities throughout the conference for you to roll up your sleeves and to work together to really build a community of practice and move the field forward during our 4 days together. So that's a little bit about the purpose, James. And on to participants, that we're really doing this with multiple stakeholders. So last year was our biggest conference ever in Philadelphia. We had 800 delegates from more than 350 organizations in more than 45 states, and I think a few international delegates as well. Our core audience really are leaders at nonprofit arts education organizations across the country. So these organizations include community schools of the arts, arts and cultural centers, preparatory programs, performing arts companies, youth-serving organizations like Boys and Girls Clubs of America, divisions of museums and other agencies. Some are, providing classes and lessons in their own facilities, and others are collaborating with a number of different community agencies like senior centers or hospitals, public schools, and others to really increase access to arts education. And of course, many are doing both. And while we're all amazing people doing very interesting work, we don't want to just be talking amongst ourselves at this year's conference. So we're also really hoping to engage funders, advisors, and allies to join this conversation with us. So as we sort of talk through what makes a successful proposal, we encourage you to also invite other stakeholders into the conversation, policymakers, local officials, academics, researchers, and other allies, because we do recognize that in order to advance the work and to really advance our mission to ensure that all people enjoy access to quality arts learning opportunities, that it is going to require us to work together. So the audience includes that diverse, dynamic community of thought leaders. James, over to you. Oh, it's still me. So this is a little bit of a framing device. I would say these are our tracks. The conference is organized into progressive tracks of sessions. These tracks were the tracks that we programmed the conference with last year. They serve as sort of inspiration to you. I wouldn't, they are not meant to be limiting, but an idea of kind of where some of the core themes of the conference have been organized in the past. Collaboration and partnerships, focusing on multiple types of collaborations and partnerships, both with schools, as I said, with other community agencies, cross-sector, et cetera. Creative youth development, this is looking at programs that are intentionally taking a holistic approach to educating young people and really fostering successful transitions for teens into adulthood by intentionally combining best practices in arts learning with youth development principles. A focus on leadership development, a focus on teaching artist development, and so this is looking at how we can work together to really amplify the impact of teaching artists in our field. Next level programming, this is a track of sessions that is typically focused on, I want to say sort of those boot camp kind of core capacity building skills in marketing, fundraising, evaluation, human resources, that area of programming. Innovative practices, and then social justice. This gives you a sense of kind of how the program has been organized in the past. I should just say that these tracks, of course, there are sessions that may overlap in a number of these different areas, and also that we do not expect delegates to sign up for a particular track, but by organizing the conference in this way, we're able to, for those who wish, really allow delegates to follow an overarching thread throughout the 4 days if they wish to.
Great. Thank you so much,
James,
Heather.
over to you.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And talking about our conference program, so this is really a professional development series, and it has a ton of benefits to you and your organization. Usually we start off on a Wednesday, which is going to be November 2nd this year, with our pre-conference institutes. Last year, when we're in Philadelphia, we had a high-impact partnerships with K-12 schools making principled decisions. That's sort of a leadership session. Then we had a social justice beyond the classroom, moving toward equity and organizational change, and a few others. But this pre-conference institute is really a time for you to take a deep dive with some industry professionals and a group of your colleagues into one of these topics. And then, of course, we have our more than 50 breakout sessions that are happening over Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So a lot of learning takes place, pretty much everything you can imagine, going back to those conference tracks that Heather talked about. Really a chance for you to dig in for 90 minutes with folks like yourselves who are going to be proposing these sessions throughout the conference proper.
And let me just jump in there.
Sure.
Some of the sessions, and we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty in just a second. You'll see that there are a number of different options for proposing sessions. So some are 90 minutes. We also have had some of those breakout sessions be as long as 3 hours. So that would be something that you would want to consider. We also last year kind of experimented with a showcase of sort of small TED Talk style talks that were organized within a 90-minute session. So as we get into the particular proposal, you'll notice that there are several options you can choose from depending on what you have planned.
Absolutely. And then as well as the traditional breakout sessions, we have our networking opportunities that happen. So through a host of roundtables, they may be discipline specific or topic specific. We also have something through the National Guild's Ambassador Program, an Ambassador Breakfast, where you can learn how to connect with National Guild representatives that are in your geographic area. We also have our special events. Usually we'll do something on Friday night during the conference or Thursday after our opening reception and have folks go out and experience the city through restaurants or socializing through cocktails. We have our Arts Ed Expo, in which we have vendors from around the country come and show off their goods to you, possibly some registration systems or some new educational software that you might be interested in exploring for your young people. We have our next level luncheons. This sort of builds off of that next level track that Heather talked about when she was talking about the conference tracks. And those are a chance for you to spend about an hour and a half, 75 minutes with someone in the field who's really doing great work around a particular topic. We do things such as how to engage parents in the work, next level partnerships in working with volunteers, or how to effectively fundraise for your organization. Different types of nuts and bolts type things to really engage in, sort of share best practices around what you're doing when it comes to those. And then we have our office hours program. This is one of the most sought after offerings during our conference, in which we have field professionals such as yourselves come out and lend their expertise in sort of one-on-one consultations with conference growers. Say you want to talk to James Horton from the National Guild for Community Arts Education about creative youth development. You would sign up for probably about a 20 to 30-minute slot, and we'd sit down and powwow over a cup of coffee and really get a chance to exchange ideas and kick a few concepts around. A lot of times office hours also builds off of topics or ideas that are brought up during conference sessions. Heather, you want to talk a little bit about our working meetings?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, you can certainly expect some traditional sessions that come in through the session proposal process, as well as that are curated by the Guild staff, where you'll have a chance to really learn from experts and practitioners in the field around topics that matter to you. We're also really interested in sessions that where people are coming together to really collaborate and work together on site. And so, as James mentioned, some of that happens through our network meetings. So we have several sessions throughout the conference. Some are discipline specific, so you'll have a chance to meet with others who may be providing programs in similar disciplines as your organization. Others that are focused on networking by organizational types. So, for example, we have a number of organizations that are divisions of larger parent organizations, one of which are programs that are part of larger colleges and universities, and there are opportunities for organizations of similar budget size as well as organization or program type to come together and actually have really focused conversations around opportunities and challenges that are specific to that network. Another example of this is what we call sort of constructivist sessions. For the past 3 years, we've had a teaching artist development track that has actually brought together multiple stakeholders over the course of the conference to work together on projects that have been identified in advance of the conference, to come together to work on those projects during the conference, and actually this year continue that work post-conference. So for example, last year we had a pre-conference facilitated by Eric Booth, who many of you may know, that facilitated a day-long pre-conference organized around 8 different projects. Some of these projects were looking at building a pay rate calendar to calculate what to pay teaching artists. One is looking at developing a white paper that is looking at the history of funding for teaching artistry in the field. Another that is working on really building a resource library of social justice resources for organizations and teaching artists to advance their practice and working with diverse communities. Those working teams worked over the course of a day. There were sessions related to some of those topics and are actually now being supported with some light administrative support on the Guild's behalf to continue their work and bring that to fruition over the next year. So that's just an example of how that might work. And again, we've had a lot of success with these types of sessions and really interested in kind of expanding the scope of what can be accomplished during our time together as a community.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Heather. And then sort of the last big component of our program, our conference program, are showcases and site visits. We have our program showcases, which really sort of highlight a specific program and what they're doing. So this is sort of a case study approach to the work as it pertains maybe to discipline, as it pertains to maybe one of the tracks that Heather spoke about earlier. And really being able to dig into what's going on at your organization or what has made the work that you're doing innovative and different that you want to share with the rest of the country. We also have spaces for student performances during our Thursday plenary, our reception, and our annual awards luncheon. And time permitting and space permitting, we also like to have pop-up performances happen throughout the conference. And then we also have our site visits that happen on Saturday morning. And these are really a time where you can, we've sort of reframed and repackaged the site visits into off-site sessions. So it's a chance for a program to submit an idea about some sort of programming that they'd like to showcase at their organization, but maybe an idea or a concept that they really want to dig in deep with a few participants to come out. These site visits are usually about 2.5 hours each, depending on the location of the organization. But it's really a great way to showcase some local organizations who are doing exceptional work. And we've been playing with the idea of possibly doing some site visits throughout the conference proper or off-site sessions throughout the conference proper and not limiting those to Saturday so we can get out of the hotel and go see this wonderful city of Chicago, which just so happens to be my hometown as well.
So before I jump into some of the few examples of topics of sessions that we've explored in the past, for those of you who may have joined us late, I just want to emphasize that we are going to leave plenty of time at the end of today's webinar for questions, but if you do have questions as we go along here, in your to the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a little chat box. And while your phone is muted, feel free to type a question in there, and we can stop along the way, certainly, and answer your questions. We know that this first part of the webinar is a lot of us sharing with you, and we want to make sure we get to your specific questions throughout. So on your screen here is just sort of a sampling of some of the topics that have come up, have been the focus of past conference sessions. These, again, are by no means, this is by no means an exhaustive list, and really is just meant to inspire you, certainly not to limit you. And many of our sessions are also, of course, multifaceted, and they cover several of these topics within their scope. We encourage you, while you're thinking about proposing a session, if you go to our website, which is communityartsed.org, The program, the full program from last year, 2015, is actually still on that site. You can review that, and I encourage you to do that, especially if you have not attended a Guild conference in the past. It really gives a nice sense of the quality and scope of the conference overall. And I should also mention that we are currently in the process of posting notes from a recent program planning meeting that we had with arts education leaders in Chicago the first week of March. This was a town hall style meeting that we held at Shy Arts, again with about 70 arts education leaders from Chicago, with an open dialogue around some of the topics and areas of interest that they have expressed. And again, this is just to give you some fodder for inspiration for where some of the conversation has been. So if you go to our conference website today, you can actually download a copy of those notes and use them as a reference as you start to think about your own session proposal. We certainly, you know, again, again, these are just an example. We're looking for cutting-edge methods for raising money, recruiting and retaining students, engaging family and alumni from programs, looking at sessions that meet the specific interests and needs of different communities and also underserved communities, so older adults, incarcerated youth, veterans, etc. We have looked at sessions that really are aimed at increasing society's understanding and appreciation of the value of arts education, sessions that are looking at positioning nonprofit arts education providers as partners in cross-sector collaborations, such as, you know, education reform, combating summer learning loss, strengthening college and career pathways for youth, improving the health and wellness of older adults, again, efforts to advance the impact of teaching artistry. So again, take a look at these. Again, just use them as inspiration. They are in no means meant to limit you, but really just to inspire your thinking. And of course, the overarching goal of all of this is to really advance equitable access to arts education for all.
Great. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of why you're here today. So proposing a session, we already had a couple questions come in about who can propose a session. Just to be clear, anyone can propose a session. You do not have to be a member. You don't have to be affiliated with an organization. Practitioners, policymakers, funders, academics, researchers, teaching artists, anyone out there who thinks that they have something that might be relevant to the Conference for Community Arts Education, you are encouraged to propose a session by all means. If you want to talk through your proposal a little bit more, please feel free to reach out to myself or Heather. Both of our contact information will be provided at the end of this webinar. But by all means, anyone can propose a session. To complete the session proposal process, we have an online form. It's really simple. Just go on there and click through, pretty self-explanatory. And you'll want to complete that. The deadline is April 29th. So you got probably about a month and a couple of weeks. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or Heather directly, and we'll help you through that proposal process. Or if you want to kick around ideas, we're also here for that as well. Effective proposals. So like I said earlier, you want to choose a topic that's relevant to a national audience. So a lot of times what will happen is that we may get a topic that's very specific, so geographically. If you're in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, of course we want to hear what's going on in Tuscaloosa, but we also want to hear how it's relevant to the rest of the country. Again, this is a national audience, so we want to make sure that there's different entry points for people to come into this conversation that you're proposing, and it's not limiting. And that goes with discipline as well. We get a lot of proposals that are focused on discipline specific, dance, music, media arts, theater, visual arts. We want to make sure that it's broad enough so that all disciplines can see themselves in there. And then student populations. A lot of times when people think of community arts education, I think some people lean toward working with young people. But again, this conference is for anyone who is working in community arts education. We really take them from the time they exit the womb to the time they return to the earth again. So really looking at from cradle to grave. The focus on innovative and exemplary practices, again, we want to hear what you've done that's innovative and different, and things that have really set the bar and sort of pushed the envelope out there as it pertains to community arts education. Substantiate effectiveness, it says it perfectly right here on the slide. Show us, don't tell us. So if you have anything, that any evidence or any evaluation tool that you're using to measure your program, please, by all means, these are the types of things that we want to share and we want to encourage people to get into. We know as arts educators that we have not always been the best at proving what we're doing is working and moving the dial, and sort of getting to that idea of impact. So don't just show us, or don't just tell us, show us. Clearly describe the learning objectives and the outcomes that you see for your session, any new knowledge that you think participants can walk away with, and things that they can clearly take back to their organization. Heather, it sounded like you had something you wanted to add in there.
Oh no, go. You wrap up, and I'll add something when you're done with this slide. I just wanted to
go for it.
All right. I think just to the point that James made about discipline, because this is a question that we get often, is it's not that, certainly if you have an exemplary program in a certain discipline, we certainly can showcase that program. What we want to be clear about is that, to James' point around learning objectives, it's how can we take the lessons that you've learned from that program, either around how you're engaging students or evaluating that program, and what is transferable to the national field, or perhaps people working in other disciplines. So I just want to be clear that it's not that we certainly can showcase different programs from different disciplines, but challenge you to sort of think about what are the learning objectives as they translate to this diverse audience that gathers at the conference. So that's just a question that we get often. I want to share that with you. We also got a question just recently about whether sessions can involve youth and families, the students and the communities that you're serving. Absolutely. In fact, when we were just in Chicago, we had quite a few people that were really interested in thinking about how we can involve, for example, the young people in our creative youth development programs in sessions, and that has been done in the past, and we certainly encourage that, and would love to have more voice from the communities that we're serving throughout the conference and their participation. Also, a question came in as to whether or not these sessions can be interactive, and in fact we prefer that. So one of the things we've heard back over the several years is that our delegates really prefer an interactive experience. So certainly you're able to present a panel, but know that some of the feedback we've been getting is people really want to get up on their feet and work through some of this and kind of work in small groups and in a more interactive way. So just be thinking about that as you're thinking about your format as well. James, back to you.
Sure, thank you. And then we'll keep going with effective proposals. You want to make sure that the presenters and panelists, they're effective communicators or teachers. A lot of times, well, not even a lot of times, there may be an instance or two where there may be someone who's absolutely brilliant and has all the ideas upstairs, but it doesn't come out quite right. So you want to make sure that the people who you propose present with you, and even yourself, you've had some experience in doing presentations. And we love panelists who represent a variety of perspectives. It's great to get your side, but let's also get the other side of the coin. So we really look for sort of this cross collaboration and bringing in people from other sectors to talk about the work. Always welcome. Make sure that your session proposals are jargon and acronym free, please, because not all the time will we know exactly what you're talking about. Sometimes with the panel review process, we open it up and have some experts from around the country review these review these submissions, and they may not be as well versed in a certain area as you may be. So please, by all means, literally spell it out for us. Continuing with effective proposals, we want to make sure that the session proposal demonstrates that the session will maximize engagement. So again, Heather spoke to this a little bit earlier. We really want to stay away from sort of the lecture series type thing, right? We want to make sure that this is a workshop and highly interactive. We've learned that over time, people want to move, people want to engage. The more interaction that you can have with the audience, and the more time the audience can interact with each other, is always welcome. You want to allow time for dialogue, and that sort of builds into that idea of making sure that there's some cross-pollination of ideas happening during your presentation. And then make sure that it's focused. A lot of times what'll happen if you get a 90-minute slot, I think we're all super ambitious as arts educators, but instead of taking on 4 ideas and just hitting the surface, it may behoove you to just choose one idea, one big idea, and really drill down and have a very deep, meaningful conversation. So don't try to cover too much ground. Effective handouts. So there's a section where you can upload handouts or some resources. If you have a YouTube link to a video of you presenting a session at another conference or doing a workshop, by all means, please share it with us. We'd like to see that. But also any materials that you have to help reinforce the learning objectives and to help participants connect with additional resources are always welcome. A lot of times we'll see at the end of a session, you'll have a presenter who does something amazing, and then they'll send out a list. This is what I'm reading. This is where some of this research has come from. These are some of the things that have influenced and helped shape these ideas. So all of that type of stuff is encouraged. And during the proposal process, we encourage you to share that with us too, so it helps give us the breadth of what you are possibly embarking on. Yeah, Heather?
No, please go.
Oh, okay. So the notification process, again, the submission deadline is April 29th. The notification deadline is August 4th. So you will know whether or not your session has been accepted by August 4th. A lot of times this happens a lot sooner. And usually with most of these proposals, we'll call you just to have a discussion with you about them, just to get some clarifying questions out there or to talk through the additional presenters you might have. And then sometimes what happens is that, Heather, and you can speak to this too, please, we'll have 2 proposals that are very similar, right? Or we'll have 2 proposals that might not be exactly the same, but we'll say, you know what, let's bring these folks together and see if they'd be interested in presenting together. So a lot of times, some of these discussions may be just that. Heather?
Yeah, we actually had a question that came in too about whether or not the guilds could be helpful in connecting folks across the country around similar issues that they may not already be familiar with, but they have an idea and they'd like to work with someone else. So by all means, this can happen before you propose, and we encourage it. So if there are others in your local community, that are doing similar work or that you already know of within the Guild network, feel free to reach out to them. But if you have an idea and you're curious, like, oh, I wonder if someone else in another area of the country is doing similar work within the Guild's network, please feel free to reach out to James and I, and we'd be happy to discuss the idea with you and brainstorm who some potential collaborators might be. Just to give you a sense, we get usually over 100 session proposals for the conference, and we of course cannot accept all of them. So the more that you all can be thinking about how to collaborate and to work together is great. And as James said, very few of the proposals that we get are ready to just immediately plug into the conference calendar. So you can expect that, in some cases, as James said, you may be getting a call just to clarify things or to say, this is a great idea, let's play with the format a little bit, or have you thought about reaching out to this organization? So there is quite a bit of curation and shaping that goes on typically for the development of the program. And so don't be surprised if you do get a call from us after you propose as well.
Absolutely. And one other thing I wanted to remind folks of, so not only can you propose a session, sometimes you may not have a session in mind, but you're thinking about a specific presenter or someone out there who you'd like to see at the conference. So there's a form online that you can also submit the name or in the credentials or a brief bio of someone who you'd like us to reach out to or connect with. I just want to encourage you, if you do go that route, please be as thorough as possible and tell us why we should reach out to that person. I'm sure that they are exceptional and amazing, but we want to know why you think they're exceptional and amazing too. So we want to make sure that you let us know that. I had a great question come in about how many conference participants typically attend each individual session. Thank you so much for that one, man. And usually we'll have about, I'd say it varies. We can get from 20 to 100 people attending a session. I would say on average, though, you can expect about 50. Usually with the larger sessions, during our plenary sessions, we'll have our plenary speaker, and then they'll do a breakout right after their plenary, and they'll get about 100 folks. But we try to program the conference so we have a level of intimacy. When you get to 100 people, you lose a little bit. Not quality, but the level of intimacy, and I think the quality of conversation is sometimes compromised if you don't have an amazing facilitator. So we try to program about 7 sessions concurrently during that breakout block so that we can accommodate about 50 people per session, give or take a few in each session. You may have some with 60, maybe 1 or 2 with 80, but we really like to try to keep it around 50. Thank you for that one.
And James, I just wanted to clarify too that when you go into the proposal, you'll see that again you can designate, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, James, who the target audience is for your session. So we do recognize that there are people who come to the conference that are really new to community arts education. There are many of you who have been in the field for decades and really want to propose sessions that are for a more advanced level in a particular topic. So we encourage you to think about that and really how you want to target your session, as well as going back to my point earlier around the length of sessions. So there are, I believe, 75-minute sessions, 90-minute sessions. We are open to a longer sort of 3-hour session if the topic merits that sort of really longer kind of deeper experience. We also, as I mentioned earlier, have just started last year experimenting with what we call these sort of TED Talk style sessions. And this might be something where you want to get together with some other folks around a particular topic and all kind of do a small showcase talk around your particular program as it relates to that topic. I'll give you one example that was very successful last year. We had 5 talks during I believe, a 90-minute session that addressed different approaches for professional development for teaching artists as part of our teaching artist development track. So these were 5 different organizations. They gave very succinct sort of TED Talk style talks about their particular approach to professional development for teaching artists, and then we opened it up for a dialogue with the group. It was hugely successful. So you may have something that really doesn't, you don't think you can fill out a whole 90-minute session, but you think it's a really great inspiring idea or approach to a particular program or community, engaging a particular community. So we want to hear about that too, and we can help you think about how that might fit into the overall conference program.
And we also had a great question come in from Leo. Thank you so much for this one. What if there's a topic that I'd like to know more about that I'm not interested in presenting in? I just want to submit an idea for topics. You know what, Leo, based on that, I think that's excellent. And what we'll do is, and I'll send out a link to this as soon as this is over, we're going to create sort of a topic share. If you want to just dump a topic in there that you want us to explore deeper as the Guild, I think that's a great way to find out what the community's thinking about. Thank you so much for that one. Registration policies as a presenter, panelist, or speaker. We do require that all presenters, panelists, and speakers register for the conference by the regular registration deadline, which will be in September. So that means that anyone who is presenting, we understand that you may have a panelist or a presenter who's presenting with you who will be in literally for that 90-minute presentation, and then they're leaving. They're not going to be with us the whole day. We still like to get them registered and get them a conference credential. And then all of our speakers are eligible for registration discounts. Usually the discount works as such. If you're a speaker for the conference, you'll get a $150 discount for attending the 3-day conference. That's Thursday through Saturday. And then you get $75 off of a single-day registration. Registrations may be waived for external panelists. So like I said, those folks who are coming in for the day just to present a session and then they're leaving, we'd like to get you registered, but we'll completely waive the fee because you won't be participating in other conference activities.
And that's particularly useful, if you are engaging, a funder or a policymaker or, someone in a school district that you just really want to have in for your session but may not have the time or interest in attending the full day or the full conference. It's a great way to just be able to engage them for that particular session and not require them to register or pay a fee.
Absolutely. And then one other way to save money in attending the conference, I just want to remind folks that if you'd like to volunteer or apply for a work-study program during the conference, a great way to save. If you are a full volunteer, you can have your whole conference fee waived. We've had speakers who are volunteers as well, and we'll waive the fee completely. It's a labor of love. It's a great way for you to community build and work differently, and working with folks in the field to work with this exceptional staff here at the National Guild that I am honored to be working with. But it's just a fantastic way to have a job at the conference. I love our volunteers. They are the lifeblood of this. We probably have about 30 to 35 volunteers every single year, and they are absolutely quintessential to the program.
And James, can you just give an example? I know it changes sometimes from year to year, but what are some of the, responsibilities of volunteers, or what have they been in the past?
Sure, absolutely. Volunteers may serve as ushers for our plenary sessions. Sometimes they serve as scribes during our breakout sessions. One of the main duties of volunteers, I would say, is we evaluate every single session that we do. That evaluation feedback is critical to helping us improve the conference, and it's also critical to folks like you who are proposing sessions and who are going to be speaking, and being able to sort of look at where your strong points are, where some of your weaknesses might be. It's a great opportunity for professional development for those who are presenting. So they will administer those session evaluations. Sometimes we'll do a check-in on the session, or sort of take attendance and get email addresses. The presenters may want to connect with folks outside of the session, that they may want to have some follow-up meetings with people. And then we use them as chaperones during our Saturday site visits and off-site sessions. And that's really, you are Guild staff and you're in charge of your 50 or 60 people that are going on your site visit that Saturday morning. And then it's also great to have volunteers who are sort of just there to help out with registration and giving out program books. Last year we had about 800 folks who attended the conference, the largest ever. And it's those volunteers and making this stuff happen, it's absolutely critical. And there'll probably be some new jobs this year. So stay tuned about that. And then we also have our network meetings. So a lot of times we'll have national groups who will come to the conference who, Boys and Girls Club, perfect example. So the past couple years, Boys and Girls Club has come to the National Guild Conference, and they've also wanted space for their network or cohort of folks to meet. So there have been about 15 to 20 BGCA members, and so we'll work with them in identifying space and time for them to meet outside of the conference program, for them to sort of build community as well.
I also want to mention that we do have a student discount for the conference too. So you have students that are interested in attending, or you are a student, you can certainly talk to us about that as well.
Yeah. And if you'd like.
And someone just asked, do we know where the conference will be in 2017? We have not yet announced our 2017 conference, but we will know shortly, so stay tuned.
Absolutely. Please stay tuned. So if there are any other questions, please feel free to send them in now. Heather, did you have any final thoughts that you wanted to share with the folks out there today?
I just want to let you all know that we are open to your ideas. We really are proud of the conference. It's continued to grow, and a lot of that has been through responding to the interest and needs of our members and our delegates. And so all ideas we are open to brainstorming with you. I had a question that came in earlier saying, can we just call you to discuss some topics? Do we need to send you anything before having that conversation? And the answer to that is no. If you want to run some ideas by us, or just do a temperature check on, does this sound something, like something would be appropriate, absolutely contact James or myself. We're happy to discuss ideas with you either by phone or email, and as I said earlier, to connect you with other folks. And I think, I just can't say enough that I think the conference is one that you can expect if you haven't been there before, where people are very engaged. While we certainly encourage people to go out and see the wonderful things of the host city, people attend the conferences, they roll up their sleeves, and they participate, and you can expect a high degree of engagement if you are leading a session.
Hey, Heather, we had a question come in. If I'd like to submit more than one proposal, can I?
Absolutely. Yes, we do try to kind of engage a diverse range of speakers, so we don't want to have, five different sessions on one organization's approach. But absolutely, please send us your ideas. We can't promise that we'll be able to accept all of them, but we would love to have multiple, proposals from either an organization or even one particular speaker. And I did see a question too from someone as to whether or not we can access an archive of what's been already done in the past, and I mentioned this briefly earlier. Yes, and we encourage you to do so. Again, if you go to our website, which is there at the bottom of your screen, communityartsed.org, and you click on the program tab, you can actually preview or look at the 2015 conference program, which was our conference in Philadelphia last year, and see all of the speaker bios and all of the session descriptions from last year. And of course, this year will be different, but I think it does give you a nice sense of the quality and the scope of the conference program. And again, mention that the notes from our recent conference program planning meeting in Chicago are also now available on our website. So use them as inspiration, but again, please don't feel like you need to be limited to those particular topics.
Yeah, absolutely. So folks, we got you out of here early today. We will add that to the tab. But thank you all so much. If there are no further questions, we will send out an email. Please stick around for that evaluation at the end of the webinar. And if there are no further questions, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. We hope to see you in Chicago this November.
Thanks. Bye.